to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very Halloween-tacular episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing the first Halloween movie since Rob Zombie's Halloween, probably, which would have been our first. Yeah, I mean, actually, we never. I think maybe that was before the podcast even started.
No, we did it on the show. He also did a sequel that we covered on the show.
Unless we did, well, we must have done it later because when it came out, we definitely had not started the show yet because it came out the weekend I moved to Florida.
Oh, I think we did a real fart smelling late review of the Robert Zombie's Halloween one.
We are here to review 2018 Halloween. It's just Halloween. That's all it's called. Starring.
It is very confusing when you have to try to look it up on the internet.
Not to be confused with 2016's Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween.
That's what I kept getting.
Joining me tonight, first up. Special guest tonight, the homeless professor of Bloody Good Horror. Please welcome one Mr. John Shelton.
Oh, hello, everybody.
He was not expecting me to call him first because he wasn't in front of his camera when I did that. Next up on the show, coming to us from hot Atlanta, but she's got a sweatshirt on. I hear it's cold Atlanta this week. Please welcome Cece.
Hello.
That wasn't enough of a verbal eye roll for me.
I mean, it's okay. I'm going with it today.
Eric has 2 kids now. It's extra dad joke. Yeah.
Next up on the show, guys, stop the presses. Mark is here for the intro of a show. Please welcome web developer, brother, husband, father. Please welcome Mark.
Hello.
Next up tonight, coming to us from Indiana. Please welcome Casey.
Yay.
And finally, from Manhattan, New York City, by way of Duke, from wherever Duke is, please welcome John Schnars.
It's in North Carolina.
The South somewhere, I just assume, because of the racism.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Halloween. I went back to work today. It's spooky season. There's lots of things happening right now, John.
Was it better or worse being back at work?
There's a lot of things that I didn't miss about work. Like, I realized that maybe being in front of a computer for 8 hours a day is not healthy.
Yeah, it's probably not.
Like, about 7 or 8 days in, I remember I turned to my wife and I'm like, I feel, even though I'm exhausted, like, I feel so much better right now than I do, like, any normal day of the year. And then I spent the next 2 weeks just thinking about how much better I felt and how much it was going to suck when I went back to work.
Fair warning, this is what happens when you do it for like 22 years.
It sucks. Yes, computers are bad for you, John. It turns out. That was a little bit of a plot twist I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it's nice to interact with adults, was my feeling when I went back every time.
Yeah, it was nice, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. So.
How has weaning yourself off the constant mayonnaise been?
Okay, I did have some mayonnaise cravings today, but I managed to, I shook it out.
Did you wear the
I
patch?
can't imagine what your car smells like with all that mayonnaise.
It's not in my, why would it be in my car?
Well, I figure you're not going to fart too much in public.
Oh my God.
You just
No, I don't.
Go to Burger King and get an original chicken sandwich and press it against your arm for a couple minutes.
Casey, I
Wow.
I eat a lot of fiber. I eat like a metric yard of greens every day, so like I don't really fart that much. I'm used to it. Mayo doesn't mess with me.
What are you guys even talking about?
I tweeted yesterday.
So are you saying it's just my car that stinks?
I tweeted yesterday that I was excited. I was sad, to like that I'm done with this time with my family, but it was probably good because I would be eating less mayonnaise because I'm eating a lot of mayonnaise right now.
Jesus Christ.
And I can't even eat bread, Schnar, so I have to get creative with it. I'm like
Really
making,
a take I've never seen from anyone on leave coming back to work.
Yeah, I don't really see how newborns equals mayonnaise.
I
you know
don't
what it
either,
is?
but-
I have such weird diet restrictions right now. There's so few comfort foods I can have that like I gotta take it where I can get
Just
it.
gotta,
Go down with a jar.
sometimes you just
Mayo,
gotta
jar,
Winnie the Pooh
spoon.
some mayonnaise out of a jar.
Yeah. No, I mean, chicken salad, tuna salad.
Oh,
I
eat the
started
fuck out of some
making
chicken salad. I'm with
salmon.
you on that.
I started making salmon cakes. if you're in the food channel, you might have seen that. It's a pretty good job.
Do those involve mayo or?
Yeah, they're in the mix, and then you dip them in mayo too. They're really good.
God. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry I asked.
John, speaking of mayonnaise, John, how's your training going for the BGH 5K?
Pretty good. BGH 5K coming this weekend. We've been talking about this for a little while, but for anyone new to the show who just needs a refresher, BGH 5K, we're going to run a virtual 5K. Anyone can participate. You simply, that was like my musical cue. You simply need to submit or tweet, Facebook, email us, whatever. Submit your time. Your basically take a screenshot of whatever running app you want to use. Make sure you run 5K. That's 3.1 miles. And just send it to Joe. Tweet it at Joe. Tweet it at Bloody Good Horror. Whatever it takes. We've got a lot of folks who have registered. They're going to be participating, so we're pretty excited. It's this weekend. You can run Saturday or Sunday. Joe's going to be coordinating a couple times when people will be going on running sort of at the same time, but otherwise do what you can do.
Yeah, all you got to do anytime and either day, just have some kind of app you can use to, capture your progress for posterity and send it in, and you could be the winner of the medal, or just participate in a fun, community event.
Or participation ribbon.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, there's lots of medals. So.
Oh, great.
I think, I'm not 100% sure that everyone will get a medal, but we're going to try to get as many people medals as
That's
we
awesome.
can.
Yeah, I can't run. I've been having some tum-tum issues, John, that have kind of derailed my training, but I decided.
Mayonnaise.
Well, totally, no, unrelated. Okay, but
he's got a bad case of Mayo leg.
But I decided I'm gonna walk it, John. And
nice.
So there you go.
All right.
I've just realized I'm on. I was on week 8 of the Couch to 5K thing. I had some phone issues today. I had to completely wipe my phone, and I've lost all of my progress.
No.
Oh, that's the worst.
So fuck it.
Does it not back up to the cloud or something?
Mine doesn't either.
Dude,
They don't
just
have the
go
cloud
out and
outside of New York, John.
just bust out like a 10-miler tomorrow.
Yeah, the
You'll be
cloud's
all right.
just in Manhattan.
That's my only choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool. I know we've been talking about it for the last few weeks, but we've had a lot of people on Slack that just are this really got me motivated to just start doing something, and I'm slow, but here's my times, and everybody's really encouraging and lots of great participation. It's been a really inspiring thing, I think, John.
I 100% agree.
Here's the takeaway
I'm very
message.
excited.
Horror people can run too, John.
I wasn't sure, but they've proven me wrong.
John.
We've proven me wrong.
No, you were right the first time, John. You're different. It's fine.
But hey, we should give kudos though to all those people that have been practicing, because there's been a lot of repping of Bloody Good Horror with the Bloody Good Horror shirts with people's training runs and their actual, their real life 5Ks and all sorts of stuff.
A lot of BGH shirts. I was rocking my Candyman shirt this weekend. I took my daughter out somewhere, which I always find really funny. I don't know why. Just that Brock Lesnar shirt. It's a good time. My favorite thing we've ever done.
It's not. I mean, it's not a normal shirt.
Counting literally everything, including this show, that shirt is my favorite thing we've ever done.
That's fair. I wear the old school one every once in a while that's got the zombie coming out of the ground, and my kids almost never fail to ask me what is that person doing without a head?
Yeah.
And why are they reaching?
You know what we should do, John? I have the original artwork. We should make OG BGH t-shirts with that.
Yes, we should, because I don't have mine anymore.
No. I mean the one nobody has except me.
Well,
I put it away this weekend, but the one I posted on.
Oh, the sweater one.
The one I posted on Patreon, yeah. So there you go. Speaking of Patreon, John, a bunch of great content up there for people. Did you listen to my interview, John?
I did not.
Oh, you should.
But I saw there was some feedback on Slack. So
there you go. Yeah, I interviewed the director of Survival of the Film Freaks. That is the documentary that I'm in, Mark, in case you were wondering. That is the source.
I'm aware.
The source of my sole IMDb credit. And then I also interviewed Ben Scrivens from Fright Rags, who you may know from the awesome horror t-shirts that they make. That is, I think, I got to check. I scheduled it. That might be up for patrons now. And then it's going to end up in the feed also in a few days. Same thing with that other interview. But the idea is sort of they record on video. The patrons are going to get that video exclusively, and then an audio-only version shows up in the feed a few days later. We also did a little Throwback Thursday post last week, John. That featured one of my
honor.
Featured one of my you were the first Throwback Thursday, John. Did you see
Eric? Do you want to know how many positions on IMDb you're down this week?
Sure.
455,308.
That's less than last week.
Right. I think your descent has slowed, so that's good.
I'll take that as progress. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was 7 million last time I checked. So
yeah, that's great.
Climbing back up.
Yeah, so I got some more posts in the work, John. Some more Horror Hound articles, some more old interviews. I'm going to digitize. I'm not sure that I'm going to hit every Throwback Thursday, but I have a lot more content to share. I will say that I don't know how I would do this, but I found about between like the 4 different years that we went to Horror Hound Weekend, I found like nearly a dozen pictures of either Mark, myself, or both of us asleep in the hotel room.
Those are probably mine.
I'm trying to figure out like a way to do a Newell sleeping post. So
we definitely have a number of shots from my problem drinking years.
there's actually some great John Shelton hair pictures.
Yes.
From the old days, like the first time.
No, I forgot. Actually, it's funny you say that because I forgot that Shelton had hair, and it's magnificent.
Yeah, it's very long.
It was flowing and
it's regal.
And regal.
It's longer than I remembered, that's for sure. I saw the pictures, I was like, whoa, that guy.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Yeah. But yeah, so you can find all that stuff on Patreon, and you can also find the live streaming show of this every week, access to the back catalog. Another thing, John, you and I went to town. There was that stretch between like 180 and 220 that's had bitrate problems for like, I don't know, like 9 years.
Forever. Yeah, forever.
And finally, I took the time while I had a little free time. I banged through all of them. I re-exported all those episodes. So if you ever been in that stretch from 180 to 220, which includes episode 200, which is a fun one, if they gave you playback issues, like all those are fixed now, and we're in the process of going back and fixing like show file names because that's kind of a hot mess too. So
yeah, they're kind of a sloppy disaster. There's 2 more. So our buddy Library of Congress on Slack, he called this out to us like a while back, and he stayed on us about it, thankfully, because it did help us get that over the finish line. He said there's at least 2 more with the bitrate issues. We'll track down.
Can you forward that to me because I didn't see that?
No, for sure.
I had an email from you. From forwarding his concern from, I'm pretty sure, February 2017,
which was over a year ago.
Which doesn't even matter because they've been that way since 2010. So,
no, other people have raised it to us, and we've basically just ignored it. So, listen, we got it taken care of. I feel good. It's a step in the right direction, and we're gonna keep going.
That email's been unread in my inbox for a year and a half, John, but I got to it. So there you go.
Here we go.
Made it happen, buddy. Stuff happening. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. I think we're just going to jump right into it here. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to raise for the group here tonight?
We've got a review of the Suspiria remake on the site, written by Evan, which is noteworthy since Evan has not written a review in a while.
I looked at it, but I couldn't read it. I just looked at what the score he gave it.
I know, I did the exact same thing. I immediately closed it. And then Sophie should have a review of Halloween up.
Oh, nice. Sure. Yeah, we sent Evan to an early preview screening of Suspiria since he is our Los Angeles correspondent, Mark. And he made the mistake of bringing like his semi-normie friend with him, who apparently was a little fucked up by the end of it.
Nice. So it's pretty. It's got a little bit of
from just that description, it sounded to me like it was enough for his friend. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, enough for a normie can be pretty low bar, but
John Shelton, really quick, you are the co-host of Sophisticated Cinema. What do you guys got going on right now?
That's correct. We are doing a movie coming up soon that I need to remember the name of. It's The Night Comes for Us, I think is what it's called.
Correct.
Thank you. Which is like it's an Indonesian movie. It's a lot of the guys who did The Raid. It's the fucking craziest, bloodiest movie I've seen, horror or whatever, in a long time. It's fucking awesome. So we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. So look forward to that.
Awesome. Sophisticated Cinema, we're the art house. meets the Grindhouse.
That's what we say.
Yes. Check that out. Another thing you can get if you're a patron. All right, John, that's it. No Joe tonight, so no drinks. Let's take a quick break so that we can review Halloween.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars,
Yes, sir.
you are sort of the Dr. Loomis of Bloody Good Horror a little bit. You know, you're a little fancy, a little erudite. You might as well have a British accent. You know, you also are a terrible doctor.
I actually love Dr. Loomis. One of my all-time favorite characters.
He's my favorite character of all time.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, not just Halloween. Like, I just love him. I mean, Donald Pleasance is kind of.
I was watching Halloween 5 yesterday when he's just totally batshit off his rocker, and he's like torturing poor little Danielle Harris because she has this like psychic link with Michael Myers, and he's just like unhinged. It's so good. It's the best. And then he uses her for bait at the end to lure Michael Myers.
As one does.
Yeah.
You know?
You'd think he'd get his medical license taken away, but I don't really know how that stuff works in Illinois. So
in Haddonfield, it's you know.
So
it's a little loosey goosey.
John Schnars, our resident Dr. Loomis, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word: survivalism. It's survivalism. Survivalism, the practicing of outdoor survival skills as a sport or hobby, or the policy of trying to ensure one's own survival or that of one's social or national group. So there's not a real etymology here. I think everyone can probably guess where the word comes from. I did a little researching on preppers and prepping as a sort of ethos, and survivalism is, I guess, sort of like a little bit of a more formal way of defining the like mentality. So what was interesting to me, at least according to Wikipedia and the citation they give there, they date it to 1976, and like this specific author who kind of like coins the term. Which is interesting because it ties pretty closely to the original Halloween. We're 42 years removed from the start of survivalism, at least as an ethos. And one of the, to me at least, one of the most interesting elements of this new Halloween 2018, was the fact that where they went with the Laurie Strode characters, they really turned her into this, survivalist character in a lot of different ways. She's someone who's had like a rough and tumble life in the intervening 40 years since we've seen her, and she sort of dealt with the trauma that was inflicted on her by really embracing a survivalism mentality.
Did anyone else get the vibe that 2018 Laurie might have voted for Trump?
No, I don't get that.
No? Okay. Well, that makes me feel better then. I just saying. John, what's this movie about?
I was like, wow, we can get into this. That's actually an interesting question. Halloween, parenthesis, 2018, close parenthesis. I don't know what we call this. But yeah, this is the much anticipated return of Michael Myers, directed by David Gordon Green, written by Green and
Kenny Powers.
What's his name again?
Kenny Powers.
Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. And then another gentleman whose name I'm also going to forget, who co-wrote a bunch of stuff with those guys. So this, basically the premise here, it basically presupposes all of the Halloween films except Halloween 1 and 2 did not happen.
Two. Only one.
Really?
Only one.
Two.
Only one.
Only one.
That was very specific because that's why it's not his sister. Because that was only in Halloween 2.
Yeah, because 2's where where them being brother and sister came out.
John, the look on your
Halloween, bro.
Schnars, the look on your face tells me that you're about to question me on this, and I'm just gonna tell you to go ahead and not.
No. I thought I had read that it.
No,
It.
false.
But in any event, all right, fine.
You're thinking of Halloween H2O.
He wrote for the magazine.
Halloween H2O did presuppose 2.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm getting confused about. And I apologize. I've lost my Halloween nerd card,
better.
obviously. But okay, so
now
really
let
quickly,
me talk about the Cult of Thorn.
So Halloween 1 happens, and then this movie happens. But it opens, we meet Michael. I was going to say Jason. That would have made your guys' head explode. We meet Michael. He is living in the same sort of jail or like sort of mental facility that he's been living in for 40 years. And there's basically these 2 podcasters who visit him. They're trying to do this story, and this is kind of just the entry point. The reality is they meet Michael, they go to meet Laurie. That is sort of the sort of introduction that we have to these characters, the reintroduction that we have to these characters. Now 40 years on, we kind of get a taste of what they've been through. We also meet Dr. Sartain, who is he's the new Donald Pleasance. He's the new Dr. Loomis. He is also sort of shaped and proportioned as Dr. Loomis was, if I remember, at least, a little bit. And yeah, I mean, so we meet all these characters, but the reality is the movie starts with Michael escaping as he is being transported to a new facility. He then returns to Haddonfield, begins to stalk the innocent Halloween celebrants of Haddonfield, and eventually is forced to sort of come face to face with Laurie, as well as her daughter and her granddaughter, who we meet sort of pretty early on. We kind of learn there's a little bit of a conflicted relationship that Laurie's had because of the sort of trauma that she's gone through, and sort of just the personal, interpersonal problems that have come from her PTSD, let's say. And so, yeah, basically all the characters sort of come together in a final sequence. It's the full third act of the film, I would say.
Halloween. It's Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah, that does takes place on October 31st. I probably should have stipulated that.
There you go, Mr. Mark.
Sir,
what'd you think of this?
The more I think about it, the more I liked it. When I first saw it, like specifically in the very like the opening scenes, I had no idea what I was in for. Like it has this kind of, I don't even know if goofy is the right word, but I'm just going to use it. It has this kind of like goofy undercurrent to it. Maybe campy is more accurate, that I think was off-putting to some people, but like they really leaned into it and used it as a way to get in like all of these like inconceivable references to not just the original movie, but like most of the other movies. I was surprised to not see like a thorn carved into a tree somewhere, although I wasn't looking for it, so maybe it was.
I'm sure that there's going to be articles that list shit that you like, once the Blu-ray comes out, people are going to pour over it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought this did the best job that they could, in that like it was definitely reverent of the entire series, even if the first one was the only thing treated as canon, and also updated it. And I think if I could complain about anything, it's that it gets a little messy. I think they were so ambitious that certain parts of the plot, specifically around kind of like the doctor and a little bit of the logistical stuff, suffers I'm guessing the first cut of this movie was like 3 hours or something, because there's some times where you're just like, oh, people are dead, or oh, they ended up here, or how did this happen? And so it's a little disorienting in that way, but overall I thought it was really fun, and I'm excited to go back and revisit it knowing what it is.
Casey.
So I too was quite pleased with this and how it turned out. I've been pretty excited since the trailer started showing up, and thanks to John's recommendation, I've been listening to Halloween Unmasked, so I felt extra nerdy going in there and watching for stuff and whatnot. And I for me, they really caught a lot of what made the first movie so good. There was just a lot of the little elements. You still don't see Michael run. They had a lot of good nods to the old movie, things like that. The violence was good. The anger was good. Overall, it was good. It's not perfect. I could say that. There's a couple things. There was times where I felt that they showed a little too much of Michael's face, I would say, just because in the original we only got that one quick glimpse right towards the end of the movie, I believe it was. And there, I felt like they got a little too gratuitous with that, even though they didn't show it full on. I like the mystery of that, but it didn't ruin anything for me. I like the characters. I really like Laurie Strode. I like the turn that Judy Greer took. So overall, I was pretty pleased.
Cece.
Who?
Cece.
Oh, I
Okay.
could. Well, I heard Casey, and then I was like, you blacked out. So I guess I should preface this with I'm not a Halloween aficionado, so
That's okay.
I mean, I enjoy the Halloween movies, and
I mean, you are a witch though, so that's Halloween adjacent.
yeah, that's true. You know, I am more on the witchy side of films than the slasher films. I was very excited about this movie and looking forward to seeing it. However, I don't know. It's not that I was disappointed because I thought that the movie was good and I liked a lot of how they developed the characters from from 40 years later. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that it was boring, but I was just kind of like, there's nothing really like pulling me in and keeping me there.
Sure.
And I think I was expecting there to be a little more of a like, I don't know, a little more something behind the like 40-year wait that's, kind of anticipated.
Here, yeah, and then we'll keep...
You want to fight?
Yeah,
No.
like I want like this huge like
well, no, but here's my
battle
thing.
royale, and it was kind of like I
No, I
liked
meant
it
you
once
want to
it-
fight me.
No, but
yeah,
but
I can fight you about
here's
it.
my
I mean,
thing, and
you
I-
can tell me I'm wrong. It's okay.
Here's my thing, and I said this over email, and then we'll keep going around. But like, even though I think I liked it, and I think they did a really good job at what they were doing, I also came away going like, we probably didn't need that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it doesn't. It's not mind blowing in any way, right? Like, I think that
Yeah.
I think he gets a lot of points for just not
Sure.
fucking it up because it's been fucked up so many times.
Right.
Jo-
I can agree with that.
John Shelton.
Yeah, no, I think you had a good point with not fucking it up. I think that's the main thing they did. It was a thankless job. Like really like making a sequel to, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. There's a lot of ways you can go wrong, Rob Zombie, but they didn't, and they managed to pull it off, and do something new with it. And they kind of balanced, the callbacks, but also new stuff, and humor and scares. It delivered for me. I liked it quite a lot. One thing that I really liked about it is that it wasn't just about Michael and Laurie. It was about the whole town of Haddonfield, and even like little side characters
Mhm.
had character points. They had character arcs. They had, they had something to add to the movie.
It's pretty impressive
Um,
the amount of story that's in this, and it still flows pretty well. Like they're actually
Yeah.
juggling a lot.
Yeah, and they managed to take like Laurie's story to a interesting place and kind of take it full circle and give her a good proper ending, which is it was really satisfying. So yeah,
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with this movie is, and Schnars, you might be aware of this, but I have a little bit of baggage when it comes to the Halloween movies. Specifically, like, it was just my thing as a kid. And actually, for me, it was even more the trilogy of, like, 4, 5, and 6, oddly enough, because those were kind of ones I discovered early on. Like, it was actually years before I ever saw the original. Like, I actually kind of saw them out of order, because, you're a kid, you go to a video store, or you're at a friend's house or whatever, that happened back in the day, right? It wasn't quite as sacrilegious as, like, people might find that now. But yeah, I've just always loved this series, and Halloween 6 was the first one that came out at a time when I was already a fan, but I was kind of too young to go to the theater. Fell in love with that one over video, and that one's kind of like the sort of black sheep in a lot of ways. but
Halloween 6.
yeah.
Wow,
It's
okay.
it's a black sheep in a lot of ways, but I feel like
Paul
the
runs
curse one.
Halloween.
I feel like lately you're hearing more, like with all these movies, you're hearing more people just be like, oh, you know what, like, when I interviewed Ben Scrivens from Fright Rags, so they're doing a whole series on every movie of shirts, including 6, and he's like, dude, he's like, I can't tell you how many people were like so pumped that I'm making Halloween 6 shirts, and I'm like, bro,
Well,
I
that
know.
was the one from like '92.
96, 95.
95.
Well,
95.
either way, that makes sense, right? Like you were 13.
I was
or
young.
12.
And it was,
you know,
but my
so-
point is like that was the first Halloween that could be mine. The same way like I love Jason X despite the fact that it's garbage because I saw it in the theater. Like that was the first Friday the 13th I saw in the theater, and I saw it twice because I was so excited. You know what I mean? And then the next
Halloween 6 is like the 90s this movie ever, and I will never not love it. even
Yeah,
though it's
I
terrible.
mean, and then I saw H2O in the theater. It was kind of like meh on that one. And then like Rob Zombie, the remake came up. I was like, you know, that movie just really bummed me out. Even though I saw that one, but I saw that one in the theater twice too, right? So like, but my point being like, my whole effing life, John, I've just wanted to see somebody do this right and be able to go see it in the theater. But also, I feel like I'm old enough at this point to have just way more perspective on it than I could have had like 10 years ago when we started the show. I can't tell you what I would have thought of this movie 10 years ago, but I can tell you like current day me was just like, just be respectful of the character and don't screw it up. And they totally do that.
you
Like,
respect him.
but no, but like, but the little references to the series that Mark's talking about, that stuff is important to me. Like, it doesn't matter to somebody who doesn't know what it is, but to me, the fact that they got these two guys, and if you listen to Halloween Unmasked, you can hear them talk. These are dudes who like have watched these movies their whole lives, have been obsessed with them. And it's like giving a bunch of lifelong fans the opportunity to do this. You can hear how excited they are, and you feel that in the movie, right? Like you feel like Rob Zombie, right? He remade Halloween, and there was zero reverence for the character of Michael Myers, right? It was more
Well-
about, for him, it was more about deconstructing and breaking it down than it was paying tribute to it.
Well, I think hold on before we go too far, and we don't need to litigate the Rob Zombie nonsense, but
No,
like
it's fine. It's terrible.
I think if you were to have heard an interview with Rob Zombie in 2007, I did look it up. You're right; it came out just before we started the show, so
I know.
we probably covered it after the fact. He probably would have said he loved this movie. Like, why would he do it if he didn't? And he loves the characters
Listen.
and wanted to explore them in a different way. Like, whatever it is, I
My
get what you're
point,
saying,
my
but-
point being, what they're doing here is different, right? Like
Yeah.
they started from this playing field of like, okay, we're gonna get John Carpenter involved, we're gonna get fans involved, we're gonna do this right, and we're gonna bring Jamie Lee Curtis back. We're gonna do it in a
Mhm.
way that I think is way better than what they did when they were in H2O. I mean, it's hard to compare because it was 20 years difference, right? Like society is different. She's a lot older. Like it's just kind of everything aligning at the same point. She's
They
fantastic.
should have called this H40, shouldn't they? Have? I mean,
She's fantastic. She's given like the most to work with that she is in any of these movies that she's been in. But again, like Sheldon said, there's also a lot of other stuff going on. They've got this granddaughter character that I think is fleshed out really well. The daughter. You've got Boz from
yeah.
Halt-
Toby Huss.
Strongest
Halt-
man in the world.
Halt and Catch Fire. We got to talk about that character a little later because I have feelings about him, very positive feelings. But the music is fantastic. Like Carpenter did the score. It's those old cues.
With his kid.
Yeah,
I think it was his
it's
son.
those old
Mm.
cues, but with this really interesting modern sheen on it. And I've been going back and listening to it, and it's like some parts of it sound like It Follows or something, and that's such a cool like dragon eating its tail, right? Like you got like Disaster Piece, really influenced by John Carpenter, and now you've got him coming back, and he's almost taking some of those like synthwave influences a little bit. It's not all of it, but it's like these little kind of touches throughout the movie. I think they did a lot of interesting things with Michael, sort of humanizing him a little bit. I don't know. I just think like there's things that I would have changed. I think that there's parts that are a little rushed. I get Casey's.
Who knew that Michael had salt and pepper hair?
Yeah, I get Casey's point about showing him too much, but they don't really fully show his face. And I
Yeah.
actually, in the end, sort of felt like they handled those little subtle humanizing touches pretty well.
I mean, if you compare it to the like unmasking at Halloween 4, I feel like this was like, or was it 4 or 5? I can't remember. I think it was 5.
It's 5.
This one was a lot. This was less offensive.
So, I mean, can I give you my
Yeah.
2 seconds, or maybe more than 2 seconds? Because I actually wanted to respond to what
You and I
said.
both know it's not 2 seconds, John.
No, I like in general, I actually like am very much on the pro side of this. Like I think they threaded a needle that was, it's not that it was like super duper hard to thread, like, you know, but balancing the fan service with moving these characters along or showing development in these characters is not super duper easy. And you know, you guys, several of you made the point that the script itself is actually pretty solid. Like, and it pays respect. It is there's a lot of homage, but there's like innovation, and there's some cool stuff. Just the fact that I agree, the fact that they got Carpenter involved here, you know, even if he's just doing the music, my understanding, I think I heard an interview with Jason Blum, and he said they ran the script by him. Like, he actually had a fair bit of, as an executive producer, he and Jamie Lee Curtis both had a lot of.
Yeah, Jason.
Kind of,
yeah, first of all, there were like 10 executive producers in the credits, the pre-credits,
Yeah.
which is hilarious. But yeah, that Jason Blum interview, he said like they called him and he was like, nah, what? Like, he's like, you guys don't give a shit about me. Just like do your stupid movie. And then they like somehow wormed their way into visiting his house, and the same thing. He was just like, get the hell out of here. I don't care. Give me my check. And then like they finally were able to convince him, like, no, we actually want you to like be involved.
But the history of this movie, or the history of the series rather, is like that it's been like shit on a million ways from Sunday by the producers and the folks who own the rights. Now, whether or not they were trying to do the right thing and yada yada, like they were trying whatever. They
Jason
IP that they wanted to monetize.
Jason Blum is a business guy, but also like he's a business guy who seems to understand that if you treat horror fans right, they're going to give you their money, right? Like it's a give and take kind of a thing.
Yes, yeah. Well, so anyway, the point I was going to make, and because Cece kind of brought it up, and I agree in part at least. Like, I definitely would say I had a harder time getting into this than I expected. I went in, I was like excited, I was hopeful, but I was also like a little guarded, let's say. Like, I was expecting this to not be super great. And I would say for the first 30 to 45 minutes, I wasn't like finding myself getting pulled into it. It's really only after for me at least, it was only after you meet the granddaughter, and then you start to see the granddaughter's relationship with with Laurie, that's to me what kind of like started to pull me into this a little more. And then the final, whatever you want to call it, 45 minutes, I thought was pretty great. Like, that's where it really does kind of hit its stride. And I think it returns to, it's funny because, and we talk about this every once in a while, you see so few slashers. I mean, we haven't, without, off the top of my head, I can't name a recent one. So just to see something that's more or less
Happy Death Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like to the point, like it's only going to work. I feel like it only works in 2018 if you either take it to the extreme or you have like a gimmick or something that makes it different, right? Happy Death Day had the gimmick thing that made it fun. This has those characters that you can mine from, right? If you take those characters out, it's just a rehash slasher in 2018 with some good music and some decent suspense. But what allows you to elevate it here is you have 40 years worth of characters that you can work with, right?
And there's a lot. I mean, the stuff, and I talked about it a little bit with the word of the day. Like, to me, the thing that made this the most interesting toward the end is all of the sort of role reversals they did with Laurie and Michael, where because she's lived this like survivalist prepper, I mean, prepper might be not the right word, but she's basically been preparing for something like this happening,
like hunting
for
almost.
for the intervening 40 years. She built her entire house to be a sort of, you know, Rube Goldbergian to trap
Michael Trap.
To deal with Michael, and you get to see that unfold, and that's not really like a spoiler. I mean,
I need those iron bars cutting off individual rooms for my toddler. Is that a thing I could do? Just like bam, like basically what I need is like
super violent baby game.
like a toddler safe room that I can hide in.
Yeah, you sweep the
room with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
or that sweet counter that you can like get underneath, like slides out of the way.
It's funny, John. You mentioned John, like the parallels they draw between Michael and Laurie. That stuff is actually like they're almost a little too on the nose with it. Like I'm like I get it. You guys don't have to literally spell it out for me like the role reversal, right?
Well,
but there's a ton of interesting like stuff going on with the Laurie character. There's like this interesting gender stuff going on where like, so this, the father character, right? And let me just say, I have never related to a character more in my life. So like Jamie Lee Curtis,
you guys with this dad character.
Jamie Lee Curtis busts into their house in the beginning with a gun and she's freaking out. And he's trying to yell at her to get out. First of all, she's not listening. Then he's the way that I would probably be if somebody busted into my house with a gun. And I'm like, dude, get that gun out of my house. First of all, you know what I mean? Like, that's just me. Like, I don't want your fucking gun in my house. She just ignores him. She's not listening to him. The entire movie, though, he's just like the most ineffectual person possible, but in this really endearing way. Like, at one point, they're in the house. I'm pretty sure it's post Michael. We know Michael Myers is on a killing spree, and he's doing a yo-yo. And he's like, yeah, this is my anti-nicotine thing or whatever. And, like, he totally gets himself, spoiler alert, he totally gets himself just murderized at one point.
Yeah, he bites it pretty hard.
But there's this funny thing, right, where, like, this father is, like, this totally ineffectual character, but here you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who's, like, basically fucking Rambo.
Well, not for nothing, like, actually, all of the, if you don't count the doctor and the cop, all of the other male characters are, like, ineffectual or, like, dickheads, or, you know what I mean? Like, they're not sympathetic in any way, and they're all kind of.
Even the podcaster the woman has to get
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis's character to agree to the podcast, not the original podcaster.
But it's
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
because, like, when you call it out, it's, you know, you get certain people that would react negatively to it. But honestly, unless you're analyzing it, you don't really notice. Like, it does. I think that's one of the things that's strongest about this movie is that, yes, there is that undercurrent, and obviously, once we get to the ending, we can talk about that even more. But it's like, it's just done in a way that seems supernatural.
Well, yeah, I
to
don't
me.
think. Yeah, I don't think that's bad. I guess my point is, like, it's interesting seeing this story filtered through sort of 2018 sensibilities. And the other nice thing is, like,
Right, this isn't really like, and they even like play with this a little bit. This isn't like teenagers going off to like drink and get laid, or it is, but then they 2018 it and kind of
yeah, and like
Yeah, they just dry hump.
I really like the other thing is though there's a nice, I think that there's a nice nuance to like Jamie Lee's character. I joke she's Rambo, but like there's a lot of vulnerability there, right? Like she's tough and she's built herself up for 40 years, but when it really push comes to shove, she falters at times. You know what I mean? Like that's
Well,
great. That's
scene
great
where
because
she showed up-
it's not one note, you know.
That scene where she showed up at the restaurant for her daughter's National Honor Society dinner afterwards with the family was pretty uncomfortable to watch because
Yeah.
it felt pretty realistic, just the way she broke down, and because she sold it really well that she's dealing with being back out in public and
Dude.
she's scared and doesn't know how to handle it, and it's
She was giving me flashbacks of this crazy neighbor that I used to have. Like she was so good at that, like making people uncomfortable thing. I was like, oh god, this is exactly.
I did not. The one thing I didn't like about the way they handled Laurie Strode was the drinking, because like it didn't feel that realistic to me. I mean, not that someone.
Well, the funny
who
thing is
was a
that's what they do in H2O too. In H2O,
Yeah,
she's
H2O
just
is
she's
all
just
about
chugging wine by the bottle.
So all right. So maybe that's like a reference. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but to me, that would like felt a little weird. Now that you say that, because I've seen H2O, but it was like on TNT, I think, and it was probably 10 years ago. So, but in any event, it's like that just like that felt weird to me. But if that was just another reference, of
I
which
don't
there
know.
were
I mean,
a ton,
yeah, there
then-
are a ton.
you know, it is what it is.
My sweet beautiful ham lady is in this movie.
Yeah, I mean the references are really interesting, right? Like I'd be curious to talk to someone who, like, even though Cece's not like a Halloweenophile in that way, whether the references would go undetected to someone who like wasn't looking for
Well, a
them.
lot of
I mean,
because
I
to
caught a
me,
few, but to be honest, like I know I didn't catch.
I mean,
half
it
as
really, yeah.
Well, they didn't seem
it-
forced. It
But
wasn't
that's
like
kind of perfect, right? That they
I
that
don't
if
know
you
if that's
some
don't.
true.
movies you
I
see a
was just-
reference and it's like this is a reference.
Some
And-
of them though are like there's some that are so I think like some of the visual references and the role reversal stuff, if you're not super familiar, it won't stick out as much. But like the one line where she was like, "Oh, you're the new Dr. Loomis," like for some reason that line in particular.
Oh, see, that
just
cracked me
felt-
up. That cracked me
yeah,
up
that
because
cracked me up too.
it was like very, I don't know, and it's again kind of the way the script is. It's very knowing of itself in a way.
I
Like
think it happened in the point of the movie where I was still like feeling it out. So I'm like,
because you meet that character and he's so, and I mean we can talk about him, right? Because if I have really, just to preface, like I think this thing actually holds up really well. If there's a weak link, I feel like you almost didn't even need this new Loomis character, which is why it's
He
kind
was
of
the biggest weakness. For
it's
me,
why
by
it's kind
far.
of funny when she points him out, because you're like, yeah, why the fuck is this dude even here? Like, the whole point is that Laurie's kind of Loomis now. And if you were gonna, I guess the part I don't understand is if you were gonna do a doctor, why make him old and British, right? Like, why not?
Yeah.
why not totally change up the like gender, ethnicity, makeup, like young, old, whatever? Like, why do a weird kind of half version of Loomis, I guess, is my only point. And it seems like
Yeah.
the only reason they tended to need him, at least in the final cut, right? Because it's a pretty tight, it's a very tight, like hour 45. So for all I know, there's more of new Loomis on the cutting room somewhere, if I had to guess. But like, they really only need him for one particular moment, and it's a very spatial kind of screenwriting puzzle they had to solve to get Michael from one place to the next. And that's sort of the problem, is that if there was more context cut, it makes that moment feel a little unearned in a way. It's really the only thing in the entire movie that I was like, like I went with it because it gets me where we're going, right?
Yeah.
Well, to that point, like with the way the trailers were edited, and even like the very beginning of this movie, the way it started out, I kind of assumed that because they were talking about Michael's going to be transferred to a different hospital, so I kind of assumed that the podcaster guy was going to be the new doctor, and that's what the way that the trailer kind of sold it. They didn't really give you a hint that they were podcasters except for the microphone, but yeah, I mean, you've seen doctors take dictation and they have an assistant with them and stuff, so it still kind of fit until she basically came out and said, "Oh, we're from NPR, yada yada yada." And the way the trailer is, they showed a lot of the scenes where Michael was out in the yard getting sunshine, the big checkerboard and stuff like that, and it really kind of sold that idea of a totally different doctor, which I kind of dug. And I think, like what John said, that kind of made the new Dr. Loomis kind of the weakest link for the movie for me too.
I mean, and so much of the original was based on Loomis's kind of quest, right? So the fact that the Doctor is even like a side character in this is just feels really weird. I feel like you could cut him.
To me, like,
that's fair too.
To me, if I was gonna do one thing, I would cut him out, and I would give Jamie more screen time hunting him, right? Because that's the whole, her whole arc is about that hunter prey thing. And there's a middle portion of the film that I actually enjoyed a lot, because it's when we're walking around Haddonfield. There's trick-or-treaters. There's a bunch of great murdering. But for a lot of this, it seems like Jamie Lee Curtis is just driving up and down the same stretch of road for no reason, like nowhere near the cul-de-sacs, which is where you should be, right? Like, and it feels like maybe if they cut this other guy out, they would have had a little more time to flesh that part out a little bit. But again, to what Sheldon was saying, there's so much going on in the script. They actually still, I think, do a pretty good job of balancing it.
How about that motion light scene, though?
That was dope.
Yeah, that was really good.
All-timer, yeah.
And that has this really great, there's a really great audio cue that Carpenter uses in the soundtrack that I can only describe as Inception-esque. It's like, wah, and they use that there, and it's really awesome.
That's like, that sequence is one of a couple of sequences that are just direct callbacks, I think, to the original, right? I mean, so there's like a sequence, it's in one of them where I think it's when she's in the closet and the lights keep going. She's turning the lights off.
Sure.
So there's like callback. So there's the sequence. To me, one of my favorite shots in the movie is like a direct ripoff from the first. I think Mark might have mentioned this over email, but when she gets thrown over the railing, which is essentially the end of the first film, and then you look back down and she's gone. Which, now that's actually, it's a little bit of a smaller moment in this film, but I just loved it. Like stuff.
Oh, that was huge. That, like, I wanted to get up and cheer when I saw it, because like you see her go through the window, and you're like, oh my god, they're gonna, and then you see her on the ground, and you're like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then he looks again, and she's gone, and holy shit! Like,
well, the point I would make is like it works even if you don't know anything about the like.
Because it worked like 40 years ago.
Yeah,
like,
it's the same
shot.
Thing. Yes, like, exactly. So
that was definitely I think my favorite part of that whole sequence for sure.
Well,
I mean, and there's
time she had to like go in a closet, and you're just like you're like sweating.
Oh my god, there's slats in the closet.
Where this isn't total spoiler, because this is kind of an inevitability, but maybe I'll just say it's spoiler alert. How did you guys feel about the length of the scene where she was going through every room in the house and closing the gates behind her?
It's really tense, I thought, but like maybe a touch long, but yeah, I think it
didn't really bother me in the moment.
It's about that almost like it's about that almost Hitchcock-esque like pacing of everything, right? It's like it's kind of lulling you, and it's very like timed to like shink, and then she moves, and then she,
Right. I mean, the entire pace of the movie was so like breakneck. There was so much shit happening So like slowing it down that much, I was having this little like meta conversation in my head. Like I know that the level of discomfort I'm feeling right now is what I'm supposed to be feeling, but
It's
I also
also
am wondering if maybe this could be
it's also
shorter.
really fun in that at that point because you're the full the full scope of Jamie Lee's murder house is getting revealed, right? Because you don't really know that stuff's there until that scene hits, and then
Right.
and
For
then
me,
you're like,
I thought,
oh, she has a plan. Like she's actually like
Oh,
executing this plan.
and I kept thinking, wow, she's been living in this house with all these fucking like crazy pieces of tech and
I had that thought too. It's like, what if she like one night tripped over something and accidentally shut the gate on her foot or something? But for me, it worked really well. It helped build tension because in the original, Michael, you didn't know where he was coming from, and some of that is an influence coming from listening to that podcast that we were talking about earlier, Halloween Unmasked, when they were talking about kind of the elements of fear and everything. Michael kind of came out of the shadows and he kind of arrived and just kind of show up. And a lot of Carpenter's fear was about anticipation. So as she's going through that house
Sure.
and she's checking each room, she closes the gate and it's like, oh, it's not that one, it's coming still. And then she closes the next one and you're kind of rooting for her because she's like being tactical and blocking the ways behind her, and you're like, oh, it's coming, and it helped build it up.
Yeah, I mean,
she could have done like one or two less rooms though.
I gotta say too, I'm really excited to go back once this is out on Blu-ray and see it sort of like with less, not baggage, but just you're watching and you're like, oh god, are they gonna do this right or not? And so like Mark said, as for me, I'm going through the whole thing and every scene, doing that mental check, like, is this the right thing to do?
Right.
Here?
If you
And then,
just
like,
watch it like less from a place of concern, I think it'll be a lot more.
I feel like the
even more
second time
enjoyable.
around, I can, yeah, and like I said, as it's gone on, I've liked it even more. I haven't really been reading. I mean, I don't really do that much anyway, but I haven't really been reading any complaints. I know some people had some issue with the humor. Like I said, 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have been alright with the humor, but I just felt like it all lands pretty well. Like the babysitting kid is hilarious. He's like my character of the year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll
That
be
wasn't
honest,
pleasant.
none of the humor really stood out to me. I've heard people make complaints about it, too much humor or anything, but for me in the moment, it all just kind of felt pretty natural.
Right, it's
I
like
mean, we've
natural.
seen what a humorless Halloween movie looks like, and it sucks.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good point.
True.
Yeah,
But it's really
not to
interesting
beat a
that like
dead zombie horse or anything, but
like the fact that this movie apparently is an hour and 45 minutes, because you could tell me this was 90 minutes long and I would believe it, or you could tell me it was over 2 hours and I would believe, because it feels like there's a lot happening, but like the pacing was just so relentless that it didn't feel long.
Yeah.
So it feels like
Yeah.
there was a lot there, but not a long runtime.
I mean, I just think this is really an impossible task, making like a universally
Yeah.
likable Halloween movie in 2018.
Totally.
And I think that like there's probably lots of different ways you could do it, but I think this is one of the better ways that you could have done it. And like I can, I guess, kind of see the humor being a little like off-putting or throw you off because it was to me initially, but then I sort of settled into it and really started to enjoy it. By the time I got to the goofy cops, I was like way in on the goofy cops. I was like, because it's not
That,
it's
by the way,
not
Goofy
humor.
Cops 100% has to be a Halloween 5 reference.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's
definitely.
no doubt.
Minus they
I
left
was-
out the slide whistle.
I was
though,
waiting
very
for like a
disappointed.
little bonk or slide whistle or something.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the thing about the humor is that it almost always feeds into that expectation that some character is gonna like bite it, basically. You know what I mean? Like you saw those cops having that dumbass conversation in the car, and immediately they're both gonna die.
Yeah.
And so like it actually does serve a plot purpose in that it's like just it's like a little signal that your brain can take a break because you know exactly what's going to happen pretty soon.
So we talked about it in email a little bit because let's get into Michael's kills a little bit. There's obviously a lot more blood in this movie than the first one,
Yo,
but it's
that head stop,
2018.
though.
You can expect
I gotta
that.
say, I very much enjoyed his drunken prison shank style in some of those kills. Like, just
Yeah.
literally, one moment he's just like, yeah, like literally, like the Wire style. It was awesome. Yeah, I was here for it.
You could bet. So we talked about this in email for a little bit. There's one house that he walked up to and he saw the lady on the phone. Then he snuck around back. Spoiler alert. Comes in through the back and you see him come in through the back of the house and she's looking out the front window and he jabs her through the neck.
That whole sequence is fantastic.
Which is a great scene. It was a great kill, and I appreciate that. But I'm kind of used to, for me, that was the only one that seemed out of place because Michael seems like he's more of an unstoppable force, and he's got a goal in mind, and he's not necessarily going to go out of his way. And she was kind of out of his way.
Right, but we were talking about this
I don't
over
think he
email.
has a goal.
Yeah, at this point in the movie,
Yeah,
he
that's
doesn't
true.
he doesn't have a goal. He escapes. He goes back to Haddonfield and he fucks shit up. That's literally his only
Yeah, this is
modus
Halloween 1,
operandi.
Michael.
He
Well,
doesn't
because
know.
he hadn't seen Lori yet.
Right.
by
It's
then,
at
right?
the end of that, after all that sequence where he kills all those people, he looks outside and sees Lori, and that's like when things change. So yeah, I think it actually makes total sense, and that's why I really enjoyed it, because it's like it's just pure chaos. He's just going from house to house, and it's great because each scene is shot differently. It's like first they're following him over the shoulder, but then he goes into a house and the camera stays outside, and you see him like stalking the woman in her living room. Like I love that whole. Again, like I talked about, I would have. It's funny because I'm all about the 90-minute movie lately, but I would have loved this movie to almost be 2 hours and expand that middle section a little more and just seen him kind of terrorizing Haddonfield a little bit more. But like it's like they had to get to the Jamie Lee Curtis stuff, and because of the way they had set everything up, she's not really involved in that part. You know what I mean? She's kind of disappears for a little while.
Well, what was really cool about that scene too, like that whole section, is because it's all kind of hidden. Like all the trick or treating, all the Halloween hijinks are going on outside. People are oblivious to the fact that like all these people in the houses that they're running past are getting
It's
shanked.
great. There's a great Halloween 2 reference where some kids with a boombox bump into him in the road. I don't know if you guys caught that, but that's like a pretty.
You got the Halloween 3, the kids with the costumes.
Yep. Ham lady. As we
Oh, I
mentioned.
didn't see the Halloween. Like, were they the exact same Halloween?
Exact
3
same costumes. Yep.
I didn't catch that one.
Man.
Which is great. Like you're shouting out Halloween 3, like you're speaking my language at that point. I feel like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
There was something else. I talked about Shank style. What was the other?
The
thing?
head stomp. Do we want to get into?
Oh man, that was
boy.
rough.
I
Head stomp.
definitely muttered "Oh fuck" out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was almost a little out of place. Like that's another one
Well,
where
the thing
That
it's-
might be
it-
the
it-
one. Yeah.
It's out of
More of a
place
Jason Voorhees
because
still.
Yeah.
there was a whole lot of off-screen deaths in this movie, which is, kind of maybe a normal thing for Halloween. So it's weird to have the contrast of like, we're not going to show certain things, but then we're just going to have like one crazy gratuitous head stomp.
squirty brain.
Yeah, like watermelon
skull break.
style.
Yeah.
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 The one of the weird quick cuts in the movie that I was really disappointed with was they never showed how he got out of the bus.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's-
would
yeah.
have liked to have seen
Well,
that whole.
That's what happened.
scene.
So the same exact thing.
Also, I saw something on
They were
Twitter.
hiding a
Someone
twist
said, "Why?
with that though.
Why do they
Yeah,
only
that's
ever
true.
transport him on Halloween?" Which I thought was kind of
Yeah. Right.
But like,
Yeah.
what I want to know with that twist though was like, did Michael know that?
Did Michael
Yeah,
know
so
what?
I guess
that it was
maybe
Halloween?
it does feed into that twist, but like as a viewer, I was just like, okay, so he's just out now. They just like were like, whoops, the bus tipped over or something. I'm like, what the fuck
Yeah,
happened?
Yeah. I
if
mean,
we know one thing, it's that like Smith's Grove Sanitarium is a really irresponsible.
Right,
like,
that's true.
I
mean,
actually-
maybe
Maybe
try to
transporting
let some
one
podcasters
person-
hold a mask up to a killer.
Exactly. I was like,
Yes.
that's
I don't think
violating so many laws.
well, but see, I thought that too. But when you, and this is actually a thread that I think works, when you sort of find out where the doctor's head is at later in the movie, he's the only authority figure there when they do it. At the time, you're like, why is he letting him do this? But then it makes sense because he just wants to know more about Michael. So from his perspective, it's like anything that gets him riled up, he wants to see what happens, basically.
Hmm.
So yeah, in
Yeah,
the
but
beginning,
it
it's
also
jarring
serves
for
as-
sure.
It serves as the perfect vehicle for Michael to get the mask back too.
Yeah,
If it's
I-
one thing I know
Right.
about being a podcaster, it's that it's definitely okay to go into asylums and wag triggering objects
well,
in front
but
of
that's a really
inmates.
interesting. Casey's point though. That's really
What do you
interesting.
say, Michael?
This movie is all about like solving screenwriting problems, and like some of them are self-inflicted because they didn't have to put Michael in a sanitarium or something. Like they kind of set up these problems for themselves, and they do a pretty, I think, clever job of solving all of them. But they're there, right? It's like you got to get Michael out of the sanitarium. Okay, you got to
Yeah.
get him out of captivity. Okay, you got to get his mask back. Okay, he's got to see Jamie Lee Curtis. Like it's almost like a Rubik's cube of plot lines that they had to tie together to sort of have this whole thing make sense. And it's kind of amazing that I think it works on most levels.
I think a lot of that stuff.
There's just some awkwardness in the execution.
See, I
of it, right?
actually like that they don't show how he escapes, because that's similar to the first movie. In the first movie, you just roll up. Loomis rolls up to the place, and it's that same thing. It's dark, and he sees people in gowns wandering
Staggering around
the grounds. Yeah, and so, I don't know. There's a little like a mirroring of that, I guess, that I like.
It's funny because we talk about the Doctor, and that was kind of the one nit I had to pick throughout the movie, is like when we have the Doctor's turn towards the end, and you see his full kind of quest and that he's going after with Michael. And it was kind of bothering me last night because I thought that was the weakest part, where we see the scene, spoiler alert, where the Hawkins hits Michael with the truck, and then the Doctor gets out. He's like, "Oh, you killed him," and then all of a sudden the Doctor kind of goes a little nutty and puts on the mask and everything, which to me felt kind of superfluous to everything. But it wasn't until Mark talking earlier, though, when he's talking about the Doctor, did we really need him? And that kind of makes it, I think that's why I had a problem with it, because the early movies, Loomis had a quest and he had a mission, and that was what Loomis was about. And we didn't really need to repeat that. We could have done this without the Doctor, and we wouldn't have had that scene where you had the Doctor walking around with Michael's mask on.
Yeah. Oh shit! I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Good
Like
Kramer callback.
again, it's like he's there to sort of solve a couple of screenwriting problems, but then he's sort of just there, and you're like, well, what's this dude doing now? You know? Yeah, I agree. Like, it's just a place that it could have been tightened up.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not ruining anything for me, but that's, if you got to pick something apart, that's a good place to do it for me.
Cece, I'm curious how you felt about just sort of like modern day prepper Jamie Lee, but also sort of the relationship between the daughter and the granddaughter.
I mean, I thought that was all pretty well fleshed out, and that it was an interesting aspect that, it definitely gave more a different facet to Jamie Lee Curtis, that she, lost her daughter when she was younger, and, the daughter's kind of resentful of it, but also like obviously has held on to that knowledge because she also too kind of knows that it was going to happen. So I thought that was really cool, and I appreciated that, it gave Judy Greer's character some different dimension as well, as opposed to just being like the naysayer daughter that,
Right.
they've had this estranged relationship. And I think you kind of mentioned too in the email, when the granddaughter is kind of like reaching out to Jamie Lee Curtis behind the mom's back. Like, I really liked that it was a very real type of relationship of like, I want this type of relationship, and I'm going to get it one way or another. So I liked that tension drove a lot of the actions of the characters. So I liked that. I thought that was fleshed out well.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's some nuance to it, which makes it
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely.
I like that Jamie Lee's character I like that Laurie had a relationship with the granddaughter behind her back. That was kind of this other interesting thread.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes was Judy Greer's turn when she was down in the cellar and everything, because you're watching this whole movie and she is resisting Jamie Lee Curtis, or Laurie, her mom, throughout the whole movie and everything. A bitch, kind of bitching about everything she put her through her childhood and stuff. And then she's sitting down there, and she knows Michael's coming in, and she's like, "Oh!" After he rips the cabinet off, and she's like, "Mom, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't do it." And finally, she knows. He stands in front, and she's like, "Yeah, gotcha, fucker." That was pretty awesome, because it's like,
that was another
kicked
stand-up
in.
from Sierra. Like, that was
yeah.
I will say, obviously, spoiler alert at this point, but we don't have to go through the ending because we got to wrap it up soon. But I was like very surprised and maybe slightly disappointed that they didn't go with the Halloween 2 walking through the fire ending, right? Like, the setup was there. I'm like, okay, he's going to come out of this house in flames, walking towards her, and then collapse, right? Like, perfect Halloween 2 reference to end on. I don't know why they did it, if they chose to just keep it ambiguous, not knowing what would happen next. But I was like, oh, was anybody else thinking that when that scene happened?
Yeah, I totally was. Especially because as you see them make their exit and the camera pulls back and you see the whole house going up in flames, it would have been a perfect moment for it too.
It's just funny.
So I was totally
and there were a lot of people in my theater, myself included, like hanging around to see if there was anything after the credits, kind of for that reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was. I thought it was a good ending. I thought the final shot was really good and set up
Oh,
maybe
it's a
some.
little abrupt. I could have used a little like
Well, that's
what do
what
they
I'm
call it
saying
there?
is, like,
Schnars, a
it's
denouement or something.
yeah. This is like, so I guess super spoiler at this point. But we already spoiled. Like, he gets locked in the basement room, and the house is on fire, and then we see this shot of this 3 generations of women like riding away in a truck, and
I
then
mean,
they
it's
cut to
it's
the youngest, the daughter slash granddaughter, like holding the bloody knife as she is, which I thought was, a really cool shot,
so
really
it's Texas.
interesting.
It's straight up Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I'm convinced they were. I don't know why they decided
yeah.
to.
Oh no,
Because
yeah,
like
for sure.
literally the truck looks like that same 70s ass truck
Yeah.
that the
Yeah,
guy had.
yeah.
But it's to me kind of rare for a Halloween movie. Like they lock him in, the fire happens, and he just kind of like stares off into the distance, which I guess is kind of like a little bit of a nod to the character being sort of like impervious or whatever. But then that's it, and then there's nothing after the credits or anything. So it's like it felt a little, yeah, it just felt a little. And also, I got made fun of this on Slack, and you guys can make fun of me for it again. It's like, seriously, this woman's husband and this girl's dad was straight up murdered, and no one cared. Like, they don't even. He's like,
Judy
they use
Greer
him,
sees
like,
him and doesn't say a word about it.
sees him in a
Yeah.
closet. It's used for a jump scare, and like they escape the house, and not one of them goes like, "Hey, where'd Dad go?"
I actually had that same thought, but it doesn't surprise me from Lori because you figure she's like, well, yeah, whatever. But like when they were walking out and chasing down the truck, it's like, well, what about Dad? Nobody's asked.
Right. You would hope at the very least the girl would be upset that her
It's-
dad was murdered.
It's
but
so funny because on *Halt and Catch Fire*, like he's an older dude and he plays old on *Halt and Catch Fire*, and like here he's got his hair dyed and he's like married to Judy Greer, who's got to be significantly younger than he is, and it's very weird.
well, I just realized that dude played Artie on Pete and Pete, which either
Yeah, you
makes
didn't know
me
that?
an idiot or
Mind-blowing.
some. Yeah, I must be new.
I'm the strongest
So-
man in the world.
He also played Khan on King of the Hill, which
Yeah,
feels
that
very
surprised
weird.
me. I didn't
That
know
would
that he.
surprise me too.
That seems not okay.
So I'm gonna just tug my collar.
Versatile actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else anybody want to bring up? We got to wrap here, but anything we missed? We talked about Shank Style. We talked about Ham Lady. So those are the two most important things. We talked
We
about
got the whole thing pretty much.
The little kid that was getting that was being babysat was pretty great. That kid and his
Okay.
one-liners were
He was funny.
hilarious.
He had a nice nod to 2018 Friend Zone Creepers. I felt
Yeah.
like with the friend there.
But when he ran out, he's like, "Steve, go! You're gonna die."
You're gonna get killed.
It's funny when I think back to the movie, I keep coming back to that backyard scene and that whole kind of chase sequence because it's just so tense.
Yeah.
It's just really
Mhm.
great. I like that sequence a lot. Although
I mean, if
I
you
have
think about
I
it-
have some trouble with the physics of that and consistency of that motion light. It doesn't actually make any sense what's happening in that backyard. Like it's coming on 1 second, right? And then people are still moving and it turns off. And it's like that's not how motion lights work. Like they're gonna stay
I've got
on.
motion lights at my house, and like I have to like dance in front of them sometimes to get them to
I
turn
mean,
on.
I was gonna say,
But
yeah,
then-
like,
but
mine are
then
kinda
when he
weird.
finally-
Technology's not quite
But
there
then
all
when
the
he
time.
finally gets up on him, though, Michael is able to move and get right in front of him before the light comes on. That don't make no sense. But it's cool.
maybe
but-
there's
Michael-
like a remote control that he's holding that you can't see.
I will
off
say
screen,
it's cool and pretty worth it. But I was like, come on, guys.
It's the Shatner mask. It provides interference for motion sensors.
Yeah.
That seat backyard, though, I will say they made me happy because you see it there. You've got all the gates with the giant spikes, and they telegraph them a couple different times with them climbing over it, and they're taking the shortcut and stuff. And then the kid jumps up on the gate. There's the giant spikes, and then Michael comes up and stabs him in the back. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to be really disappointed if those spikes don't come into play. So by the time that the granddaughter comes back, the spikes are into play, and it made me happy.
Yeah. The track on the soundtrack for that scene is called the Wrought Iron Fence,
Nice.
which is awesome. It's a great. I keep listening to it. It's on Spotify. Having Spotify is the best because you can see a movie, be like, oh, I love the score, and then just listen to it on the way home.
I just rewatched It Follows for the first time in a long time, having listened to that score a bunch. What a great little movie that is.
Yeah, it's dope. But again,
Also,
something
back
something
to
very
Halloween, the
very
mask was dope.
the what?
The mask was so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
they
was.
did a really good job with the mask. They went back to the original mold, and then they kind of made it look old. It was good. I liked it.
It was distressed.
And you know what? You couldn't see his eyes. Thank you. That's something Rob Zombie refused to get right.
I saw in the spoiler channel on Slack today that there was some talks about the original movie and how many shots that Loomis fired. Do we think that? I don't remember. I watched the first one not too long ago, but do we think one of Loomis's shots at the end of the first Halloween is what damaged Michael's eye? Because in this movie, it looked like his eye, he had one eye that was completely like fucked up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I.
Wouldn't that be coat hanger to the eye? Maybe.
Yeah.
You could be right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. So like there was something where, I mean, I might get this wrong, but in the original, there were accidentally 7 shots, but then they fixed it in Halloween 2 because they reshot that scene for Halloween 2 and fixed it. I believe that's what that deal was, but yeah. All right, guys. Time to wrap. Do you recommend this? John Shelton.
Absolutely. It's
John
a good time.
Schnorrs.
Yep.
Cece.
Sure.
Mark.
Yeah, of course.
Casey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna say hell yeah. I've just been, I don't know that somebody who's not that into Halloween would care about this, but I've just been waiting for them to do it right, and it was actually like oddly moving for me to see it and be like, fucking A, guys. Thumbs up.
Yep.
So there you go. All right, guys, gonna do it for Halloween 2018 or H40. Is that what we're gonna call it? Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Every legend is based on fact. Every myth is grounded in truth. For 17 years, the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, has been haunted by a night when evil roamed the streets and a madman ruled the night. Everyone knows his name. Now, everyone will know the truth.
I knew what he was, but I never knew why.
Halloween 6, the origin of Michael Myers.
Hey, this is Brian O'Halloran. You might know me from such films as Clerks, Clerks 2, Brutal Massacre. You're listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Fun fact about that trailer, John.
Yes.
The original trailers for that movie, it was called The Origin of Michael Myers, but then it was when Loomis died and they recut it, they changed it to The Curse of Michael Myers. This has been.
He sure did curse us.
This has been Halloween Facts with Eric.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Coming soon to Patreon. First up, actually, there's one email tonight. Caitlin says, my favorite part of Halloween was when the guy in the seat behind me sneezed so dramatically and forcefully that it blew my hair forward. Otherwise, it was a blast, and I hope you all had fun. Caitlin in Richmond. Thank you, Caitlin. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We're running late because we got started late, so we're just going to do some tweets now, Mark.
Sweet. We use 2 hashtags. One of them is BGH Classics. So if you are a patron, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror, and you have access to all of our back episodes and you hear something dumb and funny, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics, and we'll read it because we love jokes that we made. This first one is from Bid O'Brien, episode 340, Creep. The introduction of BGH Patreon, live video feeds of the show recording, and Joe's inexplicable hatred of Mark Duplass's face.
Yeah.
I just read his book, Like Brothers.
Oh,
Is it good? Him and Jay. It was good. I mean, it's a little bit. Sometimes they're a little bit too like
touchy feely.
touchy-feely, yeah, very feelingsy, but there's some cool inside baseball stuff, and it's actually pretty funny. So
I mean, that's a dude who
I
just
recommend.
he has a lot of fascinating like insight on creativity and being making independent movies and stuff. He's always interesting.
Yeah, they're like short chapters. It's a good mix of like their career and just random life advice. And I think if you don't hate those people, it's worth a read.
What's it called? I want to look that up.
I think it's called Like Brothers.
I read a good review of it. I have not read it myself, though.
I listened to it on Audible, and it was read by both of them. So they.
Oh my god!
Kind of a cool touch. Cool. Next one from Skizbot. Her kid looked like a ginger alien. John said that. Eric said that's the worst kind of alien.
We're much
Episode
more.
96,
We're much more.
The Fourth Kind.
We're much.
A documentary we reviewed called The Fourth Kind.
We're much kinder to our ginger friends now.
Yeah. Last one. Library O Congress, episode 181, Dreamhouse. Eric discussing Daniel Craig. Would a man with abs like that kill his family? Joe said no, he'd leave them and get a better family.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
You should consider having Joe on the show more often. He's really funny.
What a weird movie. That's one of those movies you look through a list of shows we've done and you're like, oh yeah, that movie. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Right, like we just reviewed some random supernatural Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Well, and did you remember we also reviewed a movie? So that one's called Dream House. Is that right?
Yeah.
But there's another movie called Dream Home. Do you remember that one?
Are you sure those are two different things?
Yeah, the Dream Home is, I believe, set in Hong Kong, and it's about it's like a woman who's like basically just like killing lots of people.
Yeah.
Because she like wants a home.
I do
something.
remember that.
Word.
It was scary.
Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to consolidate a bunch of tweets into like one sort of general question that we can talk about. So apologies if I skipped yours specifically, but there's like a common thread. We also use the hashtag AskBGH. So these are people asking questions on Twitter. So Cody asked the question in a way that I think encapsulates a lot of them. Do you think they should retire Laurie Strode and the Loomis-like character? Well, he's retired now. But from Halloween to build new characters. Like I like the first responder cop, new teens, podcaster characters more.
I mean, look, I just don't think they should make more of these movies. Straight up, like
I don't want a sequel. No.
I think they got lucky with this one. They did it right. They put in the time and the effort. But like, you want to make a bunch of more movies? I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud. But like, Friday the 13th is the way to go, right? Because it's basically a blank slate. Like, dude kills people in a hockey match.
I'll tell you what to do. You remake Halloween 3. Modern update on Season of the Witch, and then you just do the original idea of like a yearly Halloween movie. Boom.
Just do little anthologies and stuff. Yeah,
but isn't the reason it works though because it has Michael Myers in it?
No, I think the reason Season of the Witch didn't work is because it was pre-internet when people didn't know, and they went to see Halloween 3, and they're like, "Where the fuck is Michael Myers?"
Yeah.
Now everybody's gonna know about that. Nobody's gonna be surprised.
Yeah.
And you just make like a cool like anthology movie, and you know.
I don't know. I just don't.
It sounds like they're just making a horror movie.
I'd rather
that they're releasing around Halloween.
That's the real conundrum here, though. Is like, I bet they didn't plan on doing another one, but I also bet they didn't know it was going to make $75 million.
Yeah.
No, I think they probably had a sense it was going to do well. They get these things. They know what's going on by the time it comes out.
Blum knows what's going on.
Yeah, so I think consensus is it doesn't need a sequel. We have no idea where it'll go, but it probably will have a sequel. Does that sound about right? All right, so pretty much all the questions were about sequels. So I'm gonna ask this last one from our friend Alyssa, like Anthology. What are all them babies gonna be for Halloween? If you were on the pre-show, you already know half of my answer. We've got a Paw Patrol situation going on, having lots of small children in Paw Patrol costumes.
I think we're gonna have a bat because we have an infant bat costume that's gonna get reused, and we have a witch, a little toddler witch.
I love it. I approve of both of those.
We had like all these grand plans. I think I was talking on episode like 2 weeks ago about like what I was going to be and yada. We just like have not had our act together at all. So I think Sunday night we broke down, went on Amazon and bought like a dinosaur, a tiger, and I don't know what the third one is.
The thing that sucks is I can't ever get Halloween off. So if it's on the week, like I can't really go trick or treating. Well, at least at this age, because at this age, like my kid's bedtime is
Yeah, you
7
got to go
o'clock.
at 4:30.
Yeah, and I'm at work, so it's just not going to work. But maybe
I can leave work. I think I put it on my calendar. I'm going to leave at 4 and come home, and we'll trick or treat at like 5:30, something like that.
Casey, is that mask too small for your face?
It is.
Eric, you'll be happy to know that I had my coven meeting last night,
Oh,
and
yeah?
we carved pumpkins, and I broke a butcher knife in my.
Damn. What's on the witchy agenda for 2019? What are you guys planning?
Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that,
Some
Axes on men.
Some witchy shit.
and just witchy shit.
Churning butter.
Are there pictures? Because I
Put
really
axes on men.
enjoyed the pictures of the carnage last year.
Yeah, there's some pictures. They're on Instagram.
Love it. I'm going there right now. I really am. Go ahead, Mark.
That's it. I mean, you asked me to consolidate the tweets, and I did.
Oh wow. Well, let's sit here while I look up. I can't ever find you on here anymore. Oh, there you are.
Oh, I was like, it's the same.
I don't see any witchy shit. I see paintings.
While you're looking that up, I want to let everybody know that Toby Huss is playing a character called Hogjaws in a movie called Sword of Trust.
Cece, you have two different Instagrams.
I did what?
You have two different Instagrams.
Okay, I have CC Stapleton, which
Okay.
is my artwork.
I didn't know
and
that.
that's my work one.
Now I see.
You have to look at my Finstagram, as the kids call it.
Your what?
Instagram.
No, a Finstagram is a fake Instagram so that other people don't know it unless, you want them to know it.
This is good information. Ooh,
You
I
gotta
like.
get some teenagers
Learned
in your
that.
life.
I really like
just learned that term
the.
this week from one of my coworkers who discovered their kid's Finstagram.
Yep.
I really
Hey,
like the
CC, I
candy
just
corn
want to. I
thing.
just got a comment in there. You're officially old because all the 18-year-olds in my house are all about Snapchat.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand. I can't do the
CC,
Snapchat.
you know what CC, you know what I love about your house decor is like if
What?
you took away all the Halloween stuff, it's still spooky. Like it's still just old timey, like it's like you're in the further or something.
I
like it.
I have a very prevalent aesthetic in my home.
CC at the furniture store, she's like, no, wait a second. Is this haunted? Because if
Yes.
this armoire is not haunted, I'm not buying it.
Can you put a curse on it before?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I need.
Exactly. All right, guys. That's going to do it for Halloween 2018. You're actually probably not going to hear us again until post-Halloween, which is going to be really sad. So, I'm sorry. Enjoy.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah,
happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. Enjoy these last few days of spooky camaraderie. And just so you know, when it's over, Bloody Good Horror is still going to be here, Mark. That's the beauty of Bloody Good Horror. We're going to be your, recovery afterwards. We're here for you, is what I'm trying to say.
Word up.
All right, that's going to do it, I guess. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, shit. Forgot. Sorry, John.
I have no idea when I say things.
Casey, give me one more bye-bye.
Bye-bye.